Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee at Glenmore House. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the public with us tonight. I'm Councillor Tom Reeve, and I'm chairing this meeting. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave the hall by the fire exit, the one behind you, and congregate in the car park. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats, and you'll be assisted from the building. Anybody who wishes to follow the agenda from their tablet or smartphone can do so by going to the Council's website and following the links to your Council and Council meeting calendar. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and an archive version will be available to view after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings, and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Members are reminded that microphones must be switched on and spoken into clearly for the broadcast. And please, can everyone present also ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or in silent mode. So I'll start by inviting members to introduce themselves. I'm looking across the room at Councillor White.
Thank you very much. I'm Diane White from St Mark's and Seething Wells Ward.
Good evening. I'm Alison Holt and I represent Surbiton Hill Ward.
I'm Peter Hurling and I represent Alexander Ward.
I'm Mia Manders. I represent Alexandra Ward, and I'm also the portfolio holder for climate action, biodiversity and planning policy.
Good evening. My name's Anita Sharper and I'm Councillor for Berrylands Ward.
I'm Jackie Davis. I'm also from Berrylands Ward.
Andrew Waldridge, gateway to the south to Kingston, Tolworth Ward.
Tate Allen, representing Tolworth Ward.
Mariana Gonçalves, also from Tolworth.
Okay, thank you very much, councillors. We also have a couple of officers in attendance who will introduce themselves when their items are presented. So move on to public questions. We have a period of no more than 30 minutes for questions on matters relevant to the committee. We like to encourage questions to be submitted in advance so that officers have an opportunity to answer them, although that is not absolutely necessary. So I'll take questions in the following order. I'd like to go, we've got Tom Davies, Natalie Kontorski, John Davidson, and then we have three people asking questions together, Liz Mitchell, Alex Oakes, and Rob Heiliger, excuse me. So I'd like to invite each person to ask one question, and you'll be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question if appropriate. Any subsequent questions you may have will be considered only after all other residents have had the opportunity to ask their first question, if time allows. And just ask people to please be as concise as possible. We have 6 questions tonight and no more than 30 minutes. So we'd like to get through all the questions, get through everybody at least once this evening. So please, in that vein, please keep your question under 2 minutes. If you wish to preface the question with a statement, please be brief and to the point. And Herman will inform you when 30 seconds are left and when time is up. So if I could ask Tom Davis.
Is this on?
It should be. Yes, thank you.
Good evening.
And apologies. Could you also introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Aroa Marino. I live in 10 Paragon Place, so right next door.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Please Please proceed, Tom.
Good evening, councillors. Berrylands Road, as you probably know, is a very busy road. It gets around 8,000 vehicle movements per day, according to council figures. 200 buses a day, over 200 buses a day, and probably about 50 HGVs a day. And it is visually deteriorating, cracks everywhere, undulations, collapsing roads around drains, and that is causing 3 houses in the road to shake when buses and HGVs pass. Given that those buses pass every 5 minutes, roughly between 5:30 a.m. and midnight, given that my son's bed shakes, my bed shakes, my ceiling cracks, I am concerned about the state of the road. And as you'll see, other residents are here today. They have similar concerns. You've made 2 repairs recently, well, in the last decade, which have helped, but they have been repairs, they are patches. The road is not getting better, it's not going to get better. I am seriously concerned about damage to my house. Aroa is a solicitor. She has provided me some information. Basically, now we've made you aware of the potential damage to our house. If our house is damaged due to the poor state of the repair, yourselves are on notice that we may make claims against you. So, this is much shorter than I intended, given the timescales, but I would ask that
30
next
seconds.
year you prioritise resurfacing properly Berrylands Road between King Charles Road and probably Howard Road, where it is worst, so that we do not have to worry anymore about damage to our house and lack of sleep. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Aroa. We did get a response from the highways team. It's a little bit on the technical side, but basically they use a system called Vaisala for assessing the quality of the roads and how much, which roads, basically rating, grading all of the roads in the borough. Berrylands Road got a score that places it just inside the top 11% worst road surveys. So you're probably not surprised by that in 2024, based on the average condition score. Surbiton has been fortunate in the amount of money that's been allocated to it compared to other boroughs, but it's still not enough to fix every road that we need to fix that needs to be repaved. So basically, the roads that are being fixed fall inside the worst 6% of roads on the survey. So although Berrylands Road is not great, it's basically there are worse roads around. If there are any issues with defects, these can be reported, via the pothole reporting system on the council website, and that gets referred to reactive maintenance, which is in a different budget than the road resurfacing program. So that's the response that I have received from the highways maintenance team, but I can see your point, about the condition of the roads, and I've asked them for a sort of further explanation of their assessment criteria. And what they said is, there's quite a lot here, so bear with me a second. So I think you referred in one of your emails to Paragon Grove and why that had been resurfaced. And just to put that into context, that was in the worst 2% of roads surveyed in 2023. And the other, which is, obviously it has less traffic than Barrowlands Road, but it is approximately 70 metres long. And the stretch of road that would need to be resurfaced in Barrowlands Road is approximately 500 metres. So it would require substantially more funding to fix it. So basically, that is the explanation for where we are. Ideally, we would fix roads that are in that sort of that category, but we're in straitened financial times.
Do I have a
So
right
did you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. I accept all of that. I understand the system they use. It does not use a human eyeball to come and see the condition of the road. You have King Charles Road on the list for next year. There is no way King Charles Road is in a worse condition than Barrowlands Road. I use both. I know, as I'm sure most of you do as councillors. What I would ask as a supplementary question is, would yourself or Councillor Holt meet with me with a highways engineer to look at the road and determine what can be done as a fix temporarily that might help until such time as you have the funding to resurface the road?
Thank you for your supplementary question. I think I saw Councillor Holt's hand there, so please.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Reeve, for giving that background. I think as it is a main road with the buses coming on, I will take it away and ask for the officers to revisit it. We have just gone through the process of deciding which roads, but it's always very good for us to now say what roads we think are bad, and for the officers to take that away and consider for next year.
Could you include me in that discussion if they were to come and visually look at it? Because I would love them to come and stand in my house and feel it shake, as would a rower.
I don't tend to. I ask them my email will say that I've asked them to look at the road. They don't normally ask us along to have a look at when they're doing it. But the key thing is that, or the interesting thing, I suppose, which may or may not work in this case because I've now said it, that whenever I've raised a road, it's been resurfaced the next year.
Okay, I could live with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom, and Roa. And
Thank you, councillors.
We should move on to our next question, which is from Natalie Kontorski. So, okay. And if would you like to also introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't get to...
Yes, this is my colleague Steve Lucas. We're both from Friends of St Andrew's Square.
Okay, well, thank you.
Committee.
Okay, well, welcome,
Yes.
and please ask your question.
Well, I did submit this question on the 6th of February, and so you've probably read it. So in the interest of time and the fact that we're more interested in hearing from you, we'd like...
For the benefit of the people in the audience, could you just reiterate the question?
Yes.
And then and then we'll address the question. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try and read it as fast as possible. St Andrew's Square is a conservation area, but has been sadly neglected in the last few years, resulting in its condition deteriorating markedly. The Friends of St Andrew's Square, with the assistance of Kingston Council, has made great strides in 2024 in improving the gardens. However, the surrounding road and pavements also need attention. For some considerable time now, wheelie bins have been left permanently on the pavements of the square between collections, rather than being returned inside the boundaries of the individual properties. This A, restricts passage on the pavement, causing a hazard, particularly to the elderly, disabled people and for pushchairs. B, is a source of unhygienic detritus that is regularly strewn across the pavements. C, prevents proper cleaning of the pavements. And D, creates a poor visual environment for the square. Various residents have written to Kingston Council and the St Mark's Walk councillors about this issue. Eventually, Kingston Council wrote to all residents on 20th of September 2023. A copy has been supplied to you, but no follow-up action was taken. So our question is, what action is to be taken to ameliorate this problem?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question, Natalie. And I believe my colleague, Councillor White, was going to ask to address this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming along tonight and raising this again. I do appreciate we've been discussing this for quite some time now. We have a full answer from the officers, which, again, in the interest of time, it's 4 pages. They've gone through each point that you've made. So I'm going to ask Herman to make sure that he sends that to, I believe, to you yourself, Natalie, but also to the email from which your question came at the beginning. So St Andrew's Square one. So you'll have that to be able to go through. It is detailed. They did respond to every point. I'm just very briefly picking up on that. You made suggestions, very kindly, your thoughts and ideas. They considered for the removal of the bins and the boxes, they looked at 4 options for that, and it gives a detail about what could be done and the reasons why it maybe can't be done there. Following that letter in September 23, they did a full audit of the bins in October 23, and they received quite a lot of feedback from residents at the time when they were doing that. It was very mixed feedback, which is always a difficult situation to be in. Residents in some ways wanted one and others wanted others. The audit shows insufficient capacity if the bin numbers were reduced. So reducing the number of bins wouldn't work for the numbers of residents. And it also identified insufficient space in some of the properties. So in one sense, I know that you live on that. I'd be interested to know how your property addresses this issue. But I think the main thing to take away from this right now is to say, very similar actually, but this has come from the officers and me to say, can we come and talk to you on the street? Can we come on site? Can we arrange that in the next 3 to 4 weeks, diaries allowing for officers and obviously when it's most convenient to you to come along. And again, can Herman pass on the details to the waste team, and they'll get in touch directly with us all to see if we can arrange that. So so you'll have the more detailed response tomorrow, and begin immediately to start to plan a site visit to see what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a supplementary question?
No, we don't. Thank you. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and asking your question tonight. Right, so our next question should come from John Davidson. Right. Hello, John, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's my first time at the council meeting, so I've been a resident of St Mark's Ward for the last 15 years, so interesting to see how the council operates, so thanks for the time. I see in the latest Kingston Council Capital Programme budget report for 25-26 that there's nearly £2 million allocated for projects to improve the public realm. However, all of this is to be spent in and around Kingston Riverside. Meanwhile, Surbiton will benefit from £10,000 to repair the roof on Surbiton Library and £19,000 to extend plots in Surbiton Cemetery. I also note that over £4 million was spent a few years ago in developing the area around Kingston Station. However, Surbiton Station's got nearly 80% more usage than Kingston Station. And the latest reported figures showed that Kingston had just over 4 million entries and exits, whereas Surbiton had 7.3 million exits and entrants. So given that the larger projects which you included in the Surbiton Neighbourhood plan would be beyond the limits of the Community Grants Programme, my question is, what are councillors in this committee doing to ensure that these larger developments and improvements to the public realm in Surbiton, such as improving the area around Surbiton Station, are included in and funded from the Kingston Council's capital programme?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your question, John. I'd start out by saying that we have other sources of funding as well, which is the Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Fund, which is basically which has been described as a tax on development, from which you get sort of more in the order of hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend per year. And we've spent a lot on improvements in Surbiton recently to fish ponds is one area that jumps to mind, and plenty of other locations. In addition, I would just say that we also have, from the recent developments to the Tolworth Recreation Centre, the car park, and ancillary facilities there, which is coming out of the capital programme, £156,000 for that. And the Victoria Recreation Ground Pavilion has got £200,000 earmarked for that. And this is in addition to projects for, schools, new home for looked after children, and other projects around the borough that benefit people not just within the ward where they're created, but everybody in the borough, including people who live in Surbiton. So I would say, rest assured that as your councillors, we're going to be working very hard. We'll continue working very hard with our colleagues in the rest of the borough to ensure that even in these financially constrained times, our neighbourhood gets a fair deal in terms of the capital spend. So I hope that answers your question. Did you have a supplementary question?
Well, I understood that the neighbourhood plan was supposed to be a document to provide guidance for residents to submit proposals that would support that plan. So are you suggesting with this levy opportunity that it's again down to residents to submit proposals for developing this Surbiton station, for example, or a council is going to take that responsibility and apply for the funding for that from that levy?
Right, I see. Okay, that's the couple of different things going on there. I'd say the Surbiton neighbourhood plan is our suggestions from residents for things that we could be doing. I see my colleagues over here, and we have Councillor Holt, who is also our deputy leader of the council. So I'll yield the floor to her.
And I believe the co-chair of the Place Committee, is that right?
I am. I'm deputy leader, but my portfolio is communities, economic development and leisure. So a lot of the things that you've mentioned, and probably there are quite, if you've looked at our previous plan for Surbiton neighbourhood, we did have quite a lot of projects that we have delivered through our quite large ones actually, when you look at Claremont Gardens, which we did there. That was through the NSIL programme, but there's also our community parks programme. And that's, if you go to Alexander Rec, there's the pathway around there, the basketball area, nets have been improved, and there's cricket nets. There's also a path around Victoria. So there's a lot of things have been happening, smaller items. But I just wanted to come back on the station. The station is not owned by the council, and I think that's very different from the projects that you've been mentioning in the plan. That was actually our own council-owned place that we can do something with. And we're still waiting for the plans to come forward. There was some consultation with regard to the Surbiton station plans, but I'm not aware of an application coming forward yet, which would, and actually one of the things that when we were asked about it, I put forward is that public realm, both at the front and the back, needs to be part of the proposal, because that's really important and could be improved, because that's our gateway to and from Surbiton, so it's really important. The projects that I've been campaigning on, and so has Ed Davey, was the access to the station. My ward is at the back of the station. I know you're at the front, but at the back of the station, we want to get there's a lift at the back, but it's not open to residents to use or to travellers to use. So we really want to get that open, and I'm hoping that that will come forward soon, because we've been talking to the railway about that for a long time. And Ed Davies' campaign was about the additional exit at the platform 3 and 4 when it was busy. So that was some other things. So there's lots of things. I'm happy to take this probably offline, because we've only got so much time
Maybe
tonight.
I'll follow up with you to
there
get some
are
details.
that. And the other thing we're looking at is the high street. We really want to work with the businesses on the high street and around to get their ideas, because at the end of the day, I appreciate it was good to get lots of ideas. It was great to get lots of ideas from our residents, and it's good to hear from the businesses, because it's better if it comes from the residents and businesses rather than us telling you what you want. So that's why it's a collaborative approach.
Thank you.
That's great.
I'm conscious of time, but thank you.
So,
thank you very
happy
much,
to
Councillor.
take it off if you want to be in touch with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah.
Please follow up after the meeting, and we'd love to have a chat about this. So thank you, John.
Thanks very much.
Can I ask our next 3 questioners to come to the table, please? Yes. Yeah, okay, of course. Okay, thank you very much. I suppose just take them in, I suppose you'll each have a chance to ask one question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We are now into our 4th year of attending these meetings. And my question is, at the Planning Committee meeting on the 6th of October 2022, when the Red Line Road Industrial Estate expansion was approved, the late material said on page A2 and A3, and I quote, "We would, however, wish to secure a sum of £5,000 from the applicant as a contribution towards funding wider traffic management in the vicinity of the site." My question is, can you please tell me what the £5,000 was spent on for traffic management in the vicinity of the site? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. I wasn't previously aware that this money had been made available, but the response I've received from officers is that it hasn't been spent yet, it has apparently been received, but not allocated yet. So that's the answer to the question. Thank you.
Oh, do we have an idea of what it will be spent on and when? And maybe it could be spent on signage?
Right. I think, bearing in mind that would have been received as part of the application for the construction of the industrial units, new industrial units there, or the new warehouse units there.
Yep.
And those haven't been built yet, so I suspect we would take.
They have.
Oh, sorry, they have been built. Okay.
They have been built.
They have been built.
Some time ago. Yes.
Okay, then, pardon me. Then I suppose we will follow that up with officers.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have another question, please?
No.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Holt.
There's 2 parts to that. I think you've been asking about the signage at either end of the road. I think I've asked about that before, and do take this up with the highways team. But it's to do with that with the GLA. That's their signs when you're entering an area that's no longer there. That's moving from the A3, and that's why it's at that side. I don't know why that is, but you'll see that all of the roads along there have got that signage at one end, but not the other. And that was the reason. That's the point of entering from Hook Road.
Okay. I believe that was one of their...
Can you take that away and get the highways to respond to that?
Thank you very much.
That was the reason I was given before as to why there was only a sign at one end.
Well, thank you. That was one of their other questions, but thank you very much. Yes. Okay. And so do you have another question?
Yep.
Yes, okay, thank you, Alex.
Information supplied to us following an FOI to TfL shows that Councillor Mander's last email to TfL agreeing to setting up a meeting with residents was sent on the 29th of April 2024, and in it, Councillor Mander said, and I quote, "I will discuss with officers and someone will be in touch shortly." This was on the 29th of April last year. There is no further evidence from TfL about any further correspondence from Councillor Manders or the Highways team until December 2024 from the Highways Department with only the data from the O&D survey. That's right, emails from only April 2024 and December 2024, and that's all the correspondence between TfL and RBK about this issue. The issue we have spent the last 4 years coming to these meetings and raising. What does this tell us about the portfolio holder and the Highways team's commitment to resolving issues for residents in our area?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. As you've mentioned, Councillor Manders, it's only fair to allow him to respond.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, first can I say that until this week I was unaware that there had been an FOI to Transport for London that mentioned my name. If I had seen what TfL had replied, I could have obviously expanded on the matter. So instead I'll do that tonight. First of all, of course, on this matter I have responded to similar questions placed by Liz Mitchell and other residents, but I will repeat in more detail what I've said in general terms previously. On the 25th of April 2024, I emailed the engagement officer for TfL, who covers the Royal Borough of Kingston. I wrote that a group of residents wanted to meet TfL representatives directly so that they could press the case for an ANPR zone scheme in the immediate area of Fuller's Way North Junction with the A3. And this was to exclude the through traffic leaving the A3. And I pointed out that this view has so far not been supported as policy by the Royal Borough of Kingston. I noted that Kingston Highway officers had met TfL in that month and that the conclusion was that following the completion of the Tolworth roundabout works, there will be a wait while there will be a further survey work, until there's survey work in relation to Fuller's Way North, the A3 issue. This will give time for traffic patterns to settle down, the timings and phasing of traffic lights to be sorted, and further traffic modelling to be done. It was agreed by officers with TfL that a meeting would take place in August with the Royal Borough of Kingston officers to review the assessment of capacity at the roundabout and the modelling. Then, subject to these discussions, there would be a survey done in September of Fuller's Way North and the A3. I asked the engagement officer for TfL what was the view of TfL on meeting residents under these circumstances, as I knew that TfL preferred to work through London boroughs. The engagement officer for TfL replied that that person had spoken to colleagues and that he would meet with the residents, providing officers from the Royal Borough of Kingston were also at the meeting. The timing of any potential meeting with residents would need to reflect the conclusions of that meeting in April between TfL and the RBK officers. In other words, it would be best to wait until later in the year once the surveys and further discussions have taken place. After discussing the matter with RBK officers and the Neighbourhood chair on the 4th of May, I wrote back to the engagement officer for TfL agreeing to the process that they had set out. In June 2024, I moved portfolios and I took on planning policy and handed over sustainable transport to my colleague, Councillor Nicola Nardelli. At the time, I gave her an extensive briefing, which included the matter of the withdrawn LTN in Tolworth Road. On the 16th of July 2024, I wrote to Councillor Nicola Nardelli, copying to RBK officers and the Neighbourhood chair. I started by saying that Councillor Nardelli would recall that I briefed her when she started as portfolio holder about the Tolworth Road, Thornhill Road A3 traffic issues, that there was a small group of residents who had regularly attended the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee to raise the matter. I wrote that I wanted to make her aware of this request, this is for the meeting with TfL, by these residents. Such a meeting was unusual, and TfL will set out conditions. The meeting would be whenever TfL considers that the traffic flows have stabilised at Tolworth roundabout. So, Chair, in conclusion, I've approached TfL as I said I would do, and with the support of RBK officers and the Neighbourhood chair, a procedure was worked out so that residents could meet TfL.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manders. I would just add that councillors are due to meet with RBK officers soon to discuss the outcome of the meeting with TfL, after which we're going to set a date for meeting with Tolworth Neighbourhood road representatives. So thank you. And we have 1 minute left. Are there supplementary or additional question?
If I ask supplementary, will Rob still be able to ask his?
Okay. Rob, would you like to?
No, can I ask my supplementary question first before he asks his?
Oh, we have 1 minute left, and then we're moving on to the next agenda item.
Okay. Well, I think you need to let Rob ask his question, please.
Okay.
You have 1 minute.
If you would ask your question, then we'll
go on. Yeah.
Okay, well, my question, I sent an email to a number of councillors. I unfortunately did not receive any answer, so here is my question. The question deals with lorries in Thornhill Road, but the same goes for Tolworth Road. We know that there are, despite the fact that there are very large signs on the entry of both roads, large lorries use the roads at night. I think that has been measured. There are videos have been sent to the councillors. And the question is, why are we not doing anything?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rob. And I sympathise with the issue of the lorries on your road. That is a difficult situation. We get them on the road where I live as well sometimes, and it is difficult. However, there's very little or nothing that the local council can do. There is a London Lorry Control Scheme, which is administered and enforced by London councils rather than Kingston Council. The hours of operation for that are Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. So, no lorries are not supposed to go there at nights or on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 7 a.m. And any time on Sunday. So, and basically the scheme is there to help minimize pollution in residential areas during unsociable hours. And the advice from London councils, if you're concerned about the amount of HGV movement on your road during the operational hours of the scheme, that is predominantly night times and weekends, that you should contact London councils and log your complaint. And the contact details can be found on the internet, or we can send those to you afterwards. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, if I may respond, I think enforcement will pay for it, as we all know. But if that is something which is difficult, why don't we put in the deterrents? Because the lorries, the HGVs are humongous, are very, very, very big. And I think it is not difficult to put in deterrents in the roads, which will not have a problem for the cars or the buses. The K1 bus going to the road, and it would kind of make it very difficult for these big lorries to take our roads.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we could possibly have a discussion about that. Take that away and discuss if you've got some ideas. If you have some ideas for doing that, let's be
6 pages.
Let's. So if you'd like to get in contact with me or speak to me after the meeting, or get in contact with me after the meeting, then I'd be happy to meet up with you.
I'll send you the 6 pages. You can
forward. And I suspect also your ward councillors may have something to say about this as well. So briefly, because we're over time, if I could ask you, Councillor Waldridge, could you briefly respond?
It's actually really quite important, Chair.
Yes.
So would you like me to wait so I can do what I can ask?
Okay, well, if we, preferably, let's take this off. Could we take this offline and after the meeting, please? Okay, we're out of.
Well, bear with me for 30 seconds, please.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking. Would you like to quickly?
So
Microphone, Andrew.
because this has been overhanging you and us for quite a considerable period of time. But while the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames manages local roads, you've got to understand it does not enforce powers under that scheme, and that scheme is the London Lorry Control Scheme, which is managed and enforced. Yeah, but they have to understand this. Clarity, open, transparency. Very little that we can actually do. We have no enforcement powers. My suggestion to you, like it is when there is a problem with the police, is that you alert the London Council, the London Lorry Control Scheme with the emails and escalate it up.
I have.
Good.
Today.
And you've got to continue more and more and more and escalate it up. But we,
Sorry,
as a
we're not
local
going to get into
authority,
debate
thank
here.
you, Tom, 1 second, because
Excuse
that's
me.
what you've got to do. Okay? Thank you very much. Chair,
Okay.
it's all yours.
Thank you. Your microphone is still on. It's that one there.
And
Thank
thank you for the guidance. And
Okay.
we did, and I have escalated following the response to my email after 5 or 6 emails. So thank you for responding eventually.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and asking your question today. And we'll now move on to our next item of petitions. Right, there are no petitions. Right. Okay, right, okay, so moving on. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Liz Green, Councillor Yogan Nathan, and Amir Khan.
Okay, thank you very much, Herman. So declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other registrable and non-registrable interests relevant. And Councillor Hurlinger.
Yes, on item number 6 for the application for Alexander Perret, the fourth item on that particular topic, I wish to declare a non-registrable interest due to where I live. While it might affect my well-being to some extent, it will not be a greater extent the majority of inhabitants, and a reasonable person will not think my judgment is clouded, and therefore I will remain in the meeting for the debate and be voting in this part of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do any other councillors have any interest to declare? No, thank you very much. The minutes of the meeting held on the...
Yeah, Chair, 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I didn't.
I live near the Alexander Parade as well, so I'm not sure whether.
Right.
Just declaring my interest.
Let me consult here with our Democratic Services officer. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Okay.
He would I could confirm with him whether he would stay in the...
Okay, so, right, so my advice from my colleague here is that it would be the same case as Councillor Hurlinger, and it would be up to you whether you wish to stay or leave the meeting during the consideration of that item. Would you wish to stay or?
I will stay, but I won't make any comments.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, fine. Okay, excellent.
The Borough's £900 council ward funding, is that it's in our ward?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, so we can say it's okay.
Oh, yes, that's fine. Yes. Okay, yeah, I'm being told that's fine. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll, now in a...
you could...
Okay, so I just wanted to ask if the committee has no objection. I'd like to take the Seething Wells item first, and then move on to the community grants program. Is the committee happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll do that. So thank you very much. We have Tim Naylor here with us tonight. So if you'd like to introduce this item for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tim Naylor. I'm the Assistant Director for Planning and Regeneration at the Council. You'll be familiar with this particular agenda item. It's following on from the recommendation from Place Committee following a petition which set up a working group for councillors, and the working group ran for about 18 months and then made some recommendations, one of which was to provide you with an update report 3 times annually. I will go through the recommendations for you now in terms of bringing you up to speed in the context of what's happened since the last report, which I think was last September. So just moving to the updates then, paragraph 4, recommendation A. There's nothing to update on this. As previously mentioned, this is about whether we can explore the provision of a nature reserve for public access on the site, but the site's in private ownership, and the owners have no intention of disposing of the site in the foreseeable future. And the conversations we have had with them in the past were that they would require some sort of enabling development on the site in order to be able to provide a supplementary publicly accessible local nature reserve. That's the state that we're currently at. They don't intend to put a planning application in. They have had a pre-app conversation with us, and they have not taken that forward. It is metropolitan open land, so it's heavily protected, similar to Greenbelt. It's depending on the nature of the application, I think it would be quite a challenge for them to get a planning consent on the site in the first place. So nothing really further to update on that. Moving on, paragraph 5, recommendation B. We were asked to get a valuation on the land, not that the council is in a position to buy the land, or indeed the owners are willing to release the land, but there was a decision to get a land valuation. That has got a cost implication, and at the moment, in terms of the budgetary allocation that we have in the services and the restraints that are currently in place over the council, we've not actually had the funding to be able to pursue that, but it is something that we will continue to look at and determine whether we actually have the opportunity to carry out that piece of work. Recommendation, paragraph 6, recommendation C, the council to look at a spot listing application to Historic England to get some heritage protection on the archaeological and historic nature of the assets on the site. We are in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, we were poised to be completing this work in October, but the heritage officer was off sick since October. She has now returned, and we are at the point where we should be submitting that in a very short period of time, and that will be in the hands of Historic England to determine whether they do decide that there's sufficient archaeological and historic merit on the site to warrant listing. It has been requested in the past and it's been declined, but there are certain elements of the site that have obviously got value, so we'll be asking them to look at that. And the application that we're submitting carries quite a lot of evidence with it as well, which is what the officer's been working on. Moving on to recommendation 6. Sorry, I got my recommendations mixed up. Where am I? No, sorry, recommendation 7. I've just got to scroll down a bit, hang on. Right. Recommendation 6, listing application. Recommendation 7, working essentially with third-party organisations to look at whether we can improve the environmental status of the site, the habitat, the biodiversity. It's already been fairly degraded by the work that the owners have carried out to clear the site. We have had conversations with London Wildlife Trust, and we are going to continue those conversations. At the moment, we've got a bit of a hiatus because our biodiversity officer has left the council, and we are looking at recruiting to that resource, which will cover not only the area of biodiversity that the previous post holder looked at, but we're also going to be trying to expand that role so that it can look at biodiversity net gain and other ecological requirements that the council is going to have and obligations. So that is in progress, but it's static at the moment until we get another officer in place. Recommendation 8. This is in the context of the work, again, that the Heritage Office is doing on conservation area appraisals. There is a programme for those appraisals and moving them forward. It's quite an extensive piece of work, but the Seething Wells conservation area will be prioritised in that. So it will be, or the Riverside South conservation area that covers Seething Wells will be brought forward as part of that programme. But again, in the context of prioritisation of council resources and council strategic priorities, a lot of the work that our Heritage and Conservation Officer currently does is focused on development management, so that's dealing with live applications and not necessarily, the wider policy constraints, but it is a work programme that's in train. Recommendation F, paragraph 9. Place Committee reports back to full council with a review of the process that's taken place. Essentially, this is using the model of the working group that was pioneered through the Seething Wells working group as a model to involve communities in other areas of work. Now, whilst that is still a model that is available, there has been nothing that's arisen that's necessitated that approach to be taken. So it is there in the wings, as it were, waiting to be used, but it's not been taken up with any particular aspect of community engagement at the moment. But it's there for use should that opportunity arise. Recommendation G in paragraph 10. And so this relates to our ongoing dialogue with the owners. I've not had a huge amount of contact with them specifically about their aspirations for development of the site following the pre-app conversations that we had a couple of years ago. There have been a few email dialogues to and fro in terms of our work on the local plan and where we are with various aspects relating to planning policy. I think the most engagement that I've had with them recently has been about the Section 215 works on the railings and the wall. That has been progressing pretty well, actually. I've had an update today. They've got a programme and a project manager working on that. They're out of the 60 panels that were scheduled to be shot blasted, primed, painted, and finished. Of those 60 panels, they've completed all but 12. And they've been a bit beset by the recent weather over the course of the winter. So I'm expecting that to be completed now by early spring. They are giving me regular updates and I'm in dialogue with them. But that's probably the most, the long and short of the dialogue that I've been having with them. So that is nearing completion, which is a positive. Chapter 11, recommendation H, the working group will continue. I am providing them, obviously, with these updates with the committee. I'm assuming that the Seething Wells Action Group and Friends of Seething Wells are still operating together. As we left the working group, as that closed after these recommendations had been made, they were coming together as a group, forming a website, and I'm assuming that that dialogue is still ongoing. I am communicating with them myself as and when updates and notices are required. So that's ongoing. Recommendation 12, Chapter 12, Recommendation I, which is the final one, is our dialogue with the Environment Agency about the ongoing River Thames scheme, which is the flood alleviation scheme, which is happening upstream. Doesn't materially affect us. They are taking that through the National Strategic Infrastructure Project route, which enables them to apply to the Minister, Secretary of State, in order to get a development consent order. Development consent order is an opportunity which gives them to have an examination in public in terms of their planning application. That gets decided by the planning inspectorate rather than by the planning authorities, the local planning authorities ourselves. But we are a statutory consultee in that process. As I say, it doesn't materially affect Kingston, but they are keeping us regularly updated, and there are bulletins that come around which I circulate to yourselves and to the members of the Seething Wells Working Group, or the former Seething Wells Working Group. So there's nothing much to update on that. That's going through their obligation to carry out a statutory consultation, and then they will assemble all of their information, put their application together, and that will go through an examination in public. But that's some way off at the moment. But I am in regular progress with that. So that's broadly the update. Not a huge amount has changed over the course of the past 3 or 4 months, but I'm happy to take questions if you've got any.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just advise, I have received no green slip.
Okay, right. So Herman just saying that we have no residents registered to make comments. So yes, Councillor Davies. Anybody else? Councillors White, Holt, and Manders. Bear with me a second. Right. Any other takers? No, at this point. So Councillor Davis, please.
It's just a little quick one about the pump room that we didn't give permission to be developed. I was persuaded not to give permission on the grounds that we were going to bring out a section, something or other, to make the owners smarten it up. Has that happened? I should know this probably.
So Section 215 notice is what's previously been served on certain parts of the site. Essentially, it's served, it's a planning tool, effectively a bit of planning legislation, which is about amenity. So if it's considered that the state of the site is causing harm to public amenity, then that enables us to serve a Section 215 notice, which we've done on the railings. So that's that piece of work. That's ongoing and that's nearly finished. The pump house refusal was, we were waiting to see whether they were going to appeal against that decision. There's a time frame on that, which I think was October. We haven't heard anything. I've checked recently. We haven't heard anything that they're going to submit an appeal. A Section 215 notice would carry a cost. The previous Section 215 notice that we served cost about 30,000. They appealed it. We had to go to court to win that appeal, and then the Section 215 stuck. So again, it's down to budget. I can do a piece of work about assessing what a Section 215 may require financially, but also we need to make sure that in the context of an argument which may run along the lines of, had the planning application been approved, then there would be no need to fix the harm that is now being caused by the fact that the pump house hasn't been brought back into a useful purpose. So that's a bit of a circular conversation. Do we serve a Section 215 when arguably, had it been consented for the use it was being proposed for, that requirement wouldn't be there? So that's a conversation that I probably need to get some legal advice on, about whether we'd have the adequate grounds to stand a realistic prospect of actually getting a Section 215 notice accepted. So that's a conversation that I need to have.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Councillor White.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask about the railings. I know you get regular updates. Do we have anyone who goes to have a look? Because I live right by there, and I've seen one person recently, and in fact, he was in jeans and a cagoule, and he had a pot of paint next to him. And I sort of thought, is he for real, or is he just anybody who's just been? And I just wonder about the quality, and I'm not entirely sure that they're as far on as they think.
So there's no one from our council side that will be inspecting those works, although we periodically do go down there. But in terms of a sort of clerk of works, i.e. someone that's looking at the specification for the work and then making sure that the contractor's carrying out, we don't have that. I imagine that they do, because the emails that I receive have a fairly regimented programme of work in terms of whether it's been shot blasted, whether it's been primed, and whether it's been top coated. But I will go back to them and get some sort of assurance on who's inspecting the work, how regularly they do that, and are they content that the quality of the work is being carried out to the standard to which they've been asked to do through the Section 215. So I can take that on.
Thank you. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I was also had slight concern. It was good to hear that of the 60 there was only 12 left, but the last time I went past I wasn't certain.
Okay.
but so it would be good to find that out, and it is good that they're making progress, because for a long time they weren't, and it is, does improve the look of it. But following on from that, there was some highways concerns with regard to the pavement running along there, and I just wondered if there was anything more had been done on that. And then as a result of the national changes to the planned and proposed planning policy changes by the government, I just wondered if there was a risk to this site that we've identified as an area of significant area for the borough.
Oh, this is part of the question.
Can I answer one part of
Oh, yes. Okay, so you'd like to answer part of answer. Oh, right. Okay.
I think the pavement issue was the barriers that kept falling over and things like that. They haven't used anything like that for a long time, because when they were working seriously, they did have a proper barrier so that they could work behind safely. But in the wind, that always fell over into the bike lane and caused, it stopped the bike lane from being effective. But they just don't have it anymore, which I think they probably should, but they don't.
Thanks for that. The Harris fencing and I guess they had some sort of polythene sheet up. That was for the shot blasting. I think they've now done all of their shot blasting, so the rest of it is fairly manual, painting and a pot of paint sort of thing. So yeah, that was originally, and you're right. I mean, I think it probably wasn't erected sensibly, and then when the heavy winds came, it blew down, and then our highways people came along and essentially closed the site down because it was unsafe. It was causing, health and safety risks, and then the contractor walked off site, and it all took a long time to get back together. But I think we're over that stage now. And then in terms of, you're talking essentially about the green belt, grey belt policy change that's come about with the new government in terms of identifying areas that have formerly been heavily protected, which may now be potential for housing delivery. Largely, these are sites which will have been used or arguably previously developed land, or been used for some sort of industrial use, or have become degraded because they've had unlawful uses on them. Now, this particular site is Metropolitan Open Land, which is a London policy designation, but it has a heavy protection, and it's very similar to Greenbelt. It's about openness. It's not necessarily about public access, but as I say, it's quite heavily protected. We are carrying out, as we are bound to carry out, as a result of the government's changes to the national policy framework, the introduction of a grey belt designation, we are obligated to carry out a green belt review. That will also include metropolitan open land. Whether this site, I mean, that's objectively assessed. We will get a plan. We have a planning consultant in place to carry out the work, a consultant team. They're fairly familiar with having done this in the past. We've commissioned them recently. We had an induction meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. So that work will be carried out. We should have the first results coming out in April, May. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting this one to come forward as being appropriate. I'm sure there will be numerous people elsewhere that have either got interests or ownership of both Greenbelt and Greybelt that will be coming forward with proposals because they think this is a good opportunity for them. But we will await for that review. And obviously the GLA, I think, are carrying out a London-wide review as well. So we'll be working with GLA. And obviously GLA would be called into any conversations on development of these particularly sensitive sites. So yeah, it's not a given by any means.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Manders.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, we're in the situation, I think last time we discussed Seething Wells, which is essentially a stalemate between a developer who clearly, having bought the land, wants to profit from it by developing at least part of the site, and possibly more. And we've got a situation where the owner has cleared the site, destroying much of the nature which we were actually interested in the first place, and gave that site value in terms of biodiversity. I mean, the Assistant Director for Planning and Regeneration kind of points out that any application will be difficult because it's metropolitan open land. It would be problematic for the developer. And I'm sure he's right, but unfortunately the policies coming out of the Labour government and the noises coming out of the new Labour government and their drive for building houses really at whatever cost, will, I think, encourage the owner or developer of this site to come forward with applications, probably in the false confidence that they would secure planning permission. But, of course, it would be something that would be very problematic to do because of everything that's been said about the value of this site in terms of its openness and in terms of its value in terms of nature. So, and perhaps I'm not quite as sanguine as the Assistant Director about it, and we shall see. You know, we have a policy at a council which we've consistently kept to over many years now. But we don't control the developer, so we'll have to see what comes out of that next. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Manders. Are there any further comments? I would just ask myself. Just wanted to ask about the. Paragraph 6, talking about the applying to Historic England for the and the absence, and you know, so it's unfortunate that the conservation officer was Heritage and Conservation officer was off for that period of time. But is there no one else from the council that could pick that type of project up, given its importance? It's a very high-profile issue that's obviously very important to a great number of residents. Is there nobody who could have picked that up?
I started it back in March last year, where I registered with Historic England, and I started to fill in the online form. I needed Rebecca, the Heritage Conservation Officer, to do some legwork in terms of the evidence that we had gathered in the past and the applications we've made in the past. That then moved on through the summer, and we had a work experience person who was doing a lot of legwork on it, and that brought us to the end of the summer, sort of October time. And actually, to be honest, I think my previous report said that we had submitted. I was under the impression that we'd actually done the work and submitted it, but I then since learned, and when the officer went off sick, that we hadn't. We got to the point where it was almost ready for submission. So it's very near now to being submitted. So Rebecca has come back. The Heritage Conservation Officer. So I will get that prioritised, and we'll get it off over the next couple of weeks. Get it off to it's sort of ready to go. It was just waiting for someone to actually assemble everything and put the evidence together and put the package onto the web, onto the internet, and then get it sent off. So I'll prioritise that, and I'll get Rebecca to get on with that and do it over the next few weeks.
Right. Thank you very much for that. That's good to know. And what is do you have a sense of the time frame that they operate on?
I don't, but previous experience from another authority where we didn't ask them to list it. We asked them whether it was worthy of listing, if you like. Not that we wanted to list it because they wanted to redevelop the site, but it actually got turned around in about 3 months. So it shouldn't be too lengthy. It's not, years and years. So like some government institutions. So yeah, I'll chase it. They may give us a time frame, but I would have thought it's going to be sort of 3, 4, 5 months. I wouldn't have thought it's going to be any longer than that.
Okay, indeed. I think I'll just say that I think like Councillor Davies, I was partially persuaded when the planning application came that on the section 215 notice to clear up the site. So I would be interested in seeing some progress, seeing what we could do in terms of pulling something together on that. And I think you were saying you might be able to do some outline work on that issue.
Yeah, I need to look at what the reality of the circumstances in terms of our legal position. Serving a 215 notice because the amenity of the site has been degraded when an application has been in which otherwise would have improved the site. So it just depends where our legal position is. It's no point in going ahead if we're destined to have it thrown back at us, if it gets to the courts. So I will check that, and I'll work out what the costs would be and the risks are likely to be, and pursue it if that's mitigated.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think I share Councillor Mander's view that we are in a stalemate situation with we're loggerheads with the developer on this, and I'm concerned about this sort of grey belt threat to the site, and so we'll have to keep monitoring that as well. But thank you. The committee is not required to pass a resolution on this item. It was for discussion only, but thank you very much for everybody's contribution, and thank you, Tim, for coming along this evening. That brings this agenda item to a close. So if you wish to go now, that would be fine. But thank you very. Don't feel you have to stay. Thank you very much. So going back to the grants program, bear with me a second. Right. So we now move on to, this is agenda item 6, community grants program. Members of the committee and participants may refer to Appendix A of the agenda pack for details. So tonight the committee will consider 4 allocations for council award funding. And I think I'll turn over to James for to run through these. I believe starting with the Barrylands Station mural. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you stated, the committee's been asked to consider allocations of council award funding, having exhausted its neighbourhood community grants for the year. You're right, there are 4 different projects that I've been working on local councillors with for the committee to consider. Somewhat unusually, I'd like to start at the bottom of the report with paragraph 20. I just ask the committee to note the fact that you have, and I'll get there myself, £16,514 of council award funding remaining this year. It is possible, should you choose to approve them all, that you would use all of that and possibly allocate more this evening. So as I'd ask members, as you consider each of these, to bear that in mind. Considering that, I'll start with the first of these. So working with Berrylands ward councillors, we have approached Network Rail and agreed in principle agreement from them to put a mural on the Berrylands side of Berrylands Station. There's an image 1 that shows that underneath paragraph 5. I've spoken to local street artist Rue, who is a nationally renowned street artist who happens to live in a stone's throw of the station. Interestingly, when I went to meet her on site, 3 different people stopped her to say hello and talk to her about her art whilst we were there talking about options for the mural. So that's how local she is to the project. What you can see in image 2 is what she's kindly done gratis, which is a draft mural concept. And in paragraph 8, it explains what that is. So essentially, based on her initial consultation with local businesses, what she would do is she would put images of local wildlife there alongside a welcome to Berrylands wording. But she will, if this funding is agreed, go away and have further consultation with local residents and businesses to work on that final design. And if it's awarded, she'd be happy for that design to be agreed in consultation with both yourself, Chair, and Berrylands ward members. The budget is set out further below. It's quite expensive. It's £6,192. This includes a lot of preparation work. It is a large surface area. Comparatively, if you think about other murals where council funding has been used, the only one that comes to mind that I could find was one in New Malden, which was about half the size of this mural. And it was a far simpler design that simply says New Malden Station on it, was about £2,500 to prep an award. So in that context, it is a very similar value. So it includes that prep works, the design, the further research I mentioned earlier, development, and then, of course, ultimately the painting. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much, James. I'll just now move from the chair the following recommendation: that the allocation of £6,192 of council award funding for the painting of a mural at Berrylands Station, set out in paragraphs 5 to 10 of the report, be approved. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, okay, thank you, Councillor Davis. We'll take questions and comments, I think, together. So do a mix of these. So if you have questions for James, please go ahead. And starting with Councillor White.
Thank you very much. It isn't actually a question for James. I just wondered if we had a paper copy, because I'm mindful that our resident here, we're all talking about a picture that we're looking at. And you've had to look before you came. That's all right then. I'm sorry. I just feel I want to come and show it to you because it's, I don't know. It looks very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Very good point there, Councillor White. Councillor Hurlinger?
Thank you. I noticed in the report you said the Network Rail have agreed in principle. Would it be wise that when we get the final design, we make sure that we get their okay in practice as well as in principle?
Okay, yes, James, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, you're right. So the next stage, should the funding be awarded, is we'd get the design worked up, and then I have to complete what Network Rail called a mural agreement, and part of that is a submission of that design. So I'm very happy to do that as part of the process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, James. Councillor Shopper. Oh, okay, Councillor Davis, and then Councillor Shopper.
I just want to say that I think this area is in need of a lot of tender loving care. It's so bleak down there. Berrylands Station, I just want to put this on the public record, is in an appalling condition. It's so important to our residents as a station that it's safe and usable. SWR know that I have lift envy, having been to Moxford Park recently, and I'm told that we can't have a lift because we're close to New Malden and Surbiton, but it doesn't really help Berrylands residents. That's my general comment. I like the idea. It's a much bigger and much more ambitious plan than I ever thought it would be, so I'm very happy about that. And I think it will do a lot just to brighten up the area and make it a lot more inviting. Plus, actually, you wouldn't really know where the station was in Berrylands at the moment, so it would be very helpful for active travel.
Thank you, Councillor Shopper.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just to add on that, that area of the parade by the station's taken a bit of a bashing in recent years, and in terms of footfall, and it's lovely to have a focal point near the station. As my colleague Jackie was saying, it's just going to brighten up the view as you come down from the hill where the Berrylands pub is. It would just focus your eye on something really bright and colourful and uplifting, rather than what we have at the moment, which is this rather dull walls. So I think it's all I can say is I think it's I very much echo my colleague Councillor Hurling's point that this has been done in really with the feedback from the local businesses as well. Like you were saying, James, in the early consultation, feedback, engagement. So it'd be nice to bring that to fruition. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any further comments? Okay, I would just add that I feel this is an excellent project. I think this is the station really. I agree with Councillor Davis that the area really could do with some brightening up, and there's an enormous amount of work that's going to have to go into preparing this mural, including the research and consultation phase of the project. So I really do feel it's value for money as well. So if there are no further questions or comments from councillors, I'll move to the vote. Do we need a vote, or are we unanimous? Can I take this as unanimous? Yes, okay. So that is carried unanimously. So we'll move on to the next item, please, James.
Thank you, Chair. So the second allocation members have been asked to consider is £4,500 of council ward funding to provide what our Green Spaces colleagues are calling a new viewing point at the top of the hay meadow in Fishponds Park, as set out in paragraph 11 to 13 of the report. So what this entails is effectively some more hard standing, which will allow for the relocation of a bench from the perimeter of the park into that central hay meadow. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction, James. So just before we go to debate, I'll move from the chair the allocation of £4,500 of councillor ward funding to provide a new viewing point at the top of the hay meadow in Fishponds Park, as set out in paragraphs 11 to 13 of the report, be approved. And do I have a second? Do I have a second for this? Councillor Shopper. Okay, Councillor Shopper. Thank you very much. And do members of the committee wish to speak on this item? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I see no hands, so we'll move to the vote. Can I take this as unanimous, or do we need to go to a vote? Is that agreed? Agreed? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So that is agreed. So we now then move on to the next item, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the third allocation is £900 of council ward funding to support what I think is now the annual Broad Oak Spring Clean. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll just move from the chair the allocation of £900 of council ward funding to support a Broad Oak Spring Clean event set out in paragraph 14 of the report be approved. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Tylan, thank you very much for seconding that. If you wish to, do any councillors wish to speak on this item? Councillor Gonzalez, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that we are planning to use the money to hire 2 skips, and then if there's any money left, we'd like to maybe buy some plants because residents are creating a garden in that area. Is that okay?
Thank you, councillor. Okay. It was my understanding there was 700 set aside for the skips and about £200 for the plants. But obviously, if there's a bit left over from the skips, I think we'd be happy for that to go to the plants. So
Okay.
that would be great. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any other comments, councillor?
No, actually, the last time I think the cost for the 2 skips were £700. So if we can stick within the budget, then we can use the other £200 for the plants. Thank you.
Councillor Wooldridge.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just in the event that the budget isn't as what we think it's going to be, although in Tolworth, of course, we're very good when it comes to our finances, just in the event that inflation has changed things, could we have some degree of variation on the figure, please, to the discretion of the board? Thank you.
I believe that would depend on 2 things, I suspect. But did you want to speak on this? No. Okay. The one would be the amount of council award funding that we have. There is a possibility that we will use up the last of the council award funding on this. In this evening, and the second, I believe, is that we need in a motion we need to have a defined amount to authorise for potential disbursement. I suppose we could look at a slightly higher figure and then if not all the money was needed, then that money could be given back. How would that work? Do you think that would work, James?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the committee could propose to add a contingency. That's absolutely within your gift. Given that there's a 4th project to be considered, and should the committee allocate, say, £900, that would leave you 4,922 to consider the Alexandria Parade planters. Perhaps you could return to it after initiating that initial £900 to see what is remaining at the end. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we have right. I guess how much do you think that you would need by way of a contingency? Be reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, reasonable. We have the lot, but that's unreasonable. I think it's about. I think around £600 would do the job for Tolworth Broadway. That bit of Broadoaks. Have you been to Broadoaks recently? It much needed. It really, really is. Thank you so much.
Okay, so if we amend this to say an allocation of £1,000 to the Broadoaks project,
Good contingency. Is that a good enough contingency?
I think we must possibly miss. What is the amount that you would like to see allocated? An extra 600, so that would be 1,500.
Yes, I said it's another 600 on top, Tom. Yeah.
Okay, so that'd be 1,000.
I don't want to take a haircut. They want the other 600. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, right. So we have a proposal to amend the amount to £1,500 for 2 skips and planting on the in Broadoaks. Okay.
This amendment.
Right. Do we have a second for this amendment? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Shopper. Yeah. Well. Okay. So thank you very much. So the motion is for the allocation, to amend that amount to £1,500. I think we can take these items. Can we take these items together, or do we need to vote on approve these separately? Well, let's take them separately. So, are we happy with? Does anybody wish to comment on the raising the amount to £1,500 for the Broad Oaks Spring Clean event? Okay, can I take this as the amendment as unanimous? Agreed? Okay. And can I take the motion as unanimously approved? Yes? Agreed? Okay, so that is passed. You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Right, so then we move on to the fourth item. James.
Thank you, Chair. So the last allocation the committee's been asked to consider is ward funding for a number of options for planters outside the shopping parade on Alexander Drive. So set out in paragraphs 15 to 17 of the report are those options. So you can, in the table in paragraph 16 is the options. So there is an existing planter there. It's right in the middle of the parade. It's in a very poor state of repair. It's also very overgrown. So the first option is you could simply replant that and maintain it for a year. Or you could buy a replacement planter for that, or a number of additional planters to go elsewhere on the parade. Each of those options is including the cost of replacing the planters or replanting the planters, as well as the maintenance of that for 1 year. So if the committee were to agree any of these options, we'd have to note that after that has expired, we'd have to find community groups to be willing to tend those planters in future, because there will be no revenue budget to provide for the maintenance in future. Given all the awards the committee has already made this evening, the committee now has £4,322 of council award funding remaining, and a number of options for you to consider there in that table. Thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you very much, James. So if members of the committee wish to speak, please raise your hand. I think we need to discuss the various options that have been set out in James's report, and then come up with an option that would fit the funding that we have left in the council award funding. At this stage, we have £4,322 left to allocate in council award funding. So does anybody wish to speak on this item? Okay, I think we'll just need a moment here, so bear with us. Are you ready?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've just been given a figure from Herman of £4,322, which is left in the pot, which has meant that our original proposal, Jackie and I, that we were going to put forward tonight has gone out the window because we haven't got enough. What we had wanted to do was would have come to a total of 5,040. So I just wanted to say there is no wiggle room on that, is there? We literally have 4,322 left. Okay. So what that means is that what we had originally wanted was 2 new planters, and to have just replanted the existing planter. So now all that's left is enough for 1 new planter, 3,290, and replanting the existing planter. So just thinking on our feet here, obviously if there's scope further on down the line for us to add another planter, because the way that the parade is designed is that the existing planter is sort of smack bang in the middle of the parade and facing towards the front of the parade, towards Rayburn Avenue. And what we had originally hoped was to have new planters either side of the parade. But what we could propose then with what's left is obviously one tongue and groove finish planter on the right-hand side of the parade along Alexandra Drive. I think, Alison, do you want to come in? Because obviously looking at the funding, we can't do what we wanted to do tonight, which was 2 new tongue and groove planters and replant the existing planter. So I don't know whether we could just get advice on that. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Holt and then Councillor Wooldridge.
My suggestion was just that start with that, and we've got next year. Because at the end of the day, we're only finishing off what we've got for this municipal year. When we go into the next year, you'll have your ward funding. We'll have the pot again, and you just extend it then. So for the moment, just take, you either take the 2 new ones and don't replant the existing one, or whatever you want to do, whatever works out, because you're going to have maintenance. I'm actually, that's the one bit that I do think we do need to put in, because it whilst there might be planting, there's still maintenance of the actual base unit, as it were. So I do think that it's unless you're absolutely sure you're going to get people to do all of that, then that would be a cost to the council, or you would need to come back to get it maintained. You'd have to ask for more money then.
Thanks, Chair. I think that's sensible, and but totting up, obviously, we wouldn't be able to afford 2 new planters in the style we want. So we're going to opt for 1 new plant. Well, our proposal request tonight is one new planter, 2,250 tongue and groove. And replanting the existing planter 540. So, just totting that up, that should keep us within the budget.
That would take you to 3850, I believe.
3850.
Right, but
the only caveat to that was that we didn't think we needed maintenance, because we'd got we've actually got at least one of the businesses who said they're happy to maintain it, one of them, and another resident who's come forward to offer their services to maintain one of the planters. So even if we had a replanting of the existing planter, we don't see that we would basically got the maintenance covered. But I'm open to suggestions on that one. Thank you.
So just to be clear, so you're asking for a tongue and groove planter plus a year's maintenance plus replanting of no maintenance. Okay. Okay, James. Why don't you come in? You can help answer this question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You're absolutely right. So you can afford both of those if you do go for the option. It doesn't include maintenance. I would suggest, at least for the first year, that we do opt for the maintenance, because that will give us time to develop those relationships with the local businesses, to make sure we can build a regular schedule for watering. It is quite intensive. The guys from Window Flowers will come out weekly and make sure they're treated properly, and they'll also be able to talk to the local businesses about and tell them what they're doing. And taking Councillor Holt's earlier point, if you're minded to go for the tongue and groove finish, perhaps I may humbly suggest that one of those replacing the existing planter, which is in a very poor state of repair, and then returning next year, perhaps, and considering 2 extra ones to supplement at either side, may result in a better end finish than simply replanting one and going for an extra one this year. I think having 3 nice tongue and groove ones on the parade will make a nicer image long term. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I had Councillor Wooldridge and then Councillor Manders.
So apologies, if I'd seen the figures, I wouldn't have made that mistake I made by asking for more money. So in fairness, in being equitable, we're happy to give 200 quid back if that helps. There we go, just to complicate things.
Right.
Perhaps if, yeah, there we go.
I think that might... Yes.
Can I come back and just say thank you very much for your kind offer, Councillor Wardridge. My feeling is I never like using up every last penny of any kind of fund ever. We don't know what's coming up next month. And last year we ended up giving a lot of money to very good causes at the last minute and more than they asked for. So I'm happy to go with the simple idea of replacing one planter this year and then looking at what we've got next year and thinking again, seeing how it goes with maintenance as well.
Okay. Councillor Manders?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I always make a joke, don't I, about how millions of pounds worth of expenditure can go through on the Nod, and councillors can spend 2 hours arguing about where a bus shelter. So, I mean, I defer to Councillor Shaper, who's obviously thought a lot more about this than I have. I'll go with her. But I've got a general question and then a particular question. And we're heading for, as it were, money in the bank by the end of the financial year. What is the situation? Is it lose it or use it? Or can it be somehow allocated over to next year? So just an answer on that. And my particular question is, we have discussed, and certainly, Chair, I know that you've been strongly supported this, that we have some kind of landscaping and something more at the King Charles Road modal filter to definitely show, that it's something which is permanent. Where are we with that? Because it's obviously not on the agenda tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mander. The first bit, I believe it's a case of use it or lose it at the end of the financial year, but perhaps James can highlight that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So if the committee's minded to approve one new tongue and groove planter to replace the existing one and that year of maintenance, I'm putting that onto this calculator I have before me. That would leave the committee with just over £1,000 left, £1,032 left. So we could, if the committee makes a resolution tonight to allocate that to this project for new planters next year, then I can put in an accrual for that. But if not, then that's right, it's use it or lose it, as you put it. Yeah.
Okay, so if we said we wanted to put it towards planters for next year, we could do that at this stage. That means we have to allocate it to a particular project, is that correct? Right, okay. Okay, and regarding the planters on King Charles Road, I haven't brought that idea forward. I was very keen on doing that, but it's been pointed out that with the works that may hopefully soon be going on with the new school there, that it was not we shouldn't be spending the money on anything in that area until that's been resolved, because of the amount of construction traffic that will be using that little bit of road there in front of the old King Charles Centre. Councillor Manders, did you want to come back on that?
Yes, I mean, I think we were thinking, won't be surely a bit more than a few planters, but some landscaping. So my request, Chair, is that at least some design work could go on, whatever happens to the new school. So at least then we have something that has been widely discussed and that we agree to, and then that can be ready to roll in terms of implementation as soon as work at the school is finished. Would you support that, Chair?
I would definitely support that. I think it's something that we could perhaps, if we do end up with a little bit of money left over, we'll still have time to come back in the March committee meeting. Am I correct? And we could bring that back to committee then.
You're correct, Chair. We've got time to do it for March. I don't know if £1,000 will, how much sort of design work that will by the committee.
Okay, so that was the other point that was the other point I was going to make. But Councillor Manders, yes.
Just on that design work, I mean, if there's any underspends, that could be scraped together to make a better job of doing the design work, I would ask that is looked into as we're coming to the end of the financial year.
Okay. No, I definitely support that. I'm very keen to do something in that space. In fact, my ambitions go much further than that, but that's a discussion for another day. So I think where we've got to on this particular item now is a proposal coming from the Barrowlands councillors for £3,290 to take out the existing planter and replace it with a new tongue and groove planter plus 1 year's maintenance. I suppose the question I would have is, does £3,290 cover the cost of taking out the existing planter? Would there be a disposal cost for that we need to take into account, James?
I'd have to double check. From memory, I think they'd be happy to include that as part of the costs. But if the committee are reminded to allocate this additional £1,000 towards this project as well, we can use that both for some contingency budget and then also then accrue it the next year, if not, and use it for some more planters. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Okay. So that would be the other. So that would be an additional £1,000 and change, around about £1,000. Yeah. Okay, so that would be, okay. So are we happy with that? Can I have so I will take that as I'll put that forward as a motion if we're all agreed. Okay, so are we happy for the allocation of £4,000, which is the last of our council award funding, £4,322 towards the planters? That will take out the existing planter, replace with a new tongue and groove planter, 1 year's maintenance, and then carrying over the whatever is the balance for planters in the new year. Do I have a second for that? Yes, Councillor Shopper, are we agreed on that? Agreed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Right, we got there. We got there in the end. There we go. Moving on. I believe that is all the business we have. Oh yes, sorry. Just the work programme. Would members please note the work programme of the committee at Appendix C of the agenda? Do members have any comments on that? Councillor Manders.
And you have to bear with me, Chair, this is just an excuse to raise this item. Just to say that we have benefited as a borough from offenders doing community payback, so the teams of them have been used to improve the parks and open spaces. And then suddenly it stopped and they were withdrawn because apparently the prison service wanted more elaborate toilet arrangements for them. It was a bit mysterious what exactly that meant, but anyway, officers are trying to find out what we have to do to bring them back, and I do hope that they can recommence supporting the community by doing work in our parks as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
I hung that off the antisocial behaviour item. That's what I was hanging it off.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, I believe that will be coming to committee as soon as well. Okay. So great. If there's no further business, close this meeting at what time is it? 21:19. Thank you very much for attending and watching on the live stream.